the woman the six-winged frost centipede couldn't forget, who sacrificed her nascent soul to help Han Li break through to the nascent soul stage. The woman the six-winged frost centipede, Han Li's own son, couldn't forget. What is it about Bingfeng that makes the six-winged frost centipede relentlessly pursue her? In the original novel, Bingfeng Fairy is described as a woman of unparalleled beauty, the most beautiful woman Han Li encountered in the mortal realm. However, when they first appeared, Bingfeng and Han Li were at odds. At that time, Han Li went to the Little Extreme Palace to pick Xianbing flowers for Nangong Wan, but was discovered by Han Li Shangren to possess the Frost Flame and the Void Heaven Cauldron. Han Li then forced Han Li to stay and help him break through to the nascent soul stage. The breakthrough failed, and Han Li Shangren immediately turned on Han Li, demanding the Void Heaven Cauldron. A fierce battle ensued. After Han Li finally managed to defeat Han Li Shangren and his group, just as he was about to leave, several disciples of the Little Extreme Palace rushed in. Han Li only learned after asking that the ice sea monsters had begun attacking the Little Extreme Palace. Han Li didn't want to get involved in this mess and only wanted to leave the Little Extreme Palace. However, he was not only blocked by the ice sea monsters but also by Che Laoya's avatar. After finally breaking through Che Laoya's myriad demon banner, he intended to run to the teleportation array to leave. However, when he released the violet extreme fire to protect himself, Bingfeng noticed something amiss. Bingfeng was currently fighting the three Little Extreme Palace masters and had no time to pay attention to Han Li. But the azure ice flame on Han Li's body immediately caught Bingfeng's attention. Because the former master of the azure ice flame, the Ice Soul Fairy, was the nemesis of the Bingfeng clan, Bingfeng began to obstruct Han Li's departure. She even transformed into a woman in white palace attire before Han Li. Of course, Han Li at this moment couldn't afford to admire Bingfeng's stunning beauty. Escaping as quickly as possible was paramount. He even harbored murderous intent towards Bingfeng. Now comes the crucial detail: the inner palace of the small extreme palace has 3 teleportation arrays. To prevent Han Li from escaping unnoticed using his escape techniques, Bingfeng used 2 six-winged frost centipedes to guard the other 2 arrays. That's right, Bingfeng also possesses 6-winged frost centipedes, and hers has evolved to 4 wings. This detail creates an inextricable and complex relationship between the 6-winged frost centipedes and Bingfeng. When Han Li left the lesser extreme palace, Bingfeng, in an attempt to stop him, led him and Han Li into a teleportation array. This array led to the 5th level of the Void Heaven Palace. Upon arrival, Han Li found himself in the Void Heaven Palace, but was unable to leave due to the 5th level's restrictions. Bingfeng also couldn't find a way out. Breaking the 5th level's restrictions required 2 to 3 nascent soul stage experts, which 2 core formation cultivators clearly couldn't achieve. To successfully escape, Han Li and Bingfeng reached an agreement to join forces. However, even this didn't break the restrictions of the Void Heaven Palace. Unable to leave, Han Li chose to cultivate there. The Void Heaven Palace only opens once every 2 to 300 years, so the 2 could only wait for its next opening. The author did indeed set the timeline well. When Han Li entered the Void Heaven Palace at the core formation stage, he was around 150 years old. He was around 280 years old when he was imprisoned there. Han Li and Bingfeng spent 80 years together there, exactly 200 years, and they survived until the Void Heaven Palace reopened. For 80 years, Han Li and Bingfeng, a lone man and woman, shared a room. Although the specific details weren't described, their feelings for each other undoubtedly changed. They went from being adversaries to friends. Then, Han Li broke through to the nascent soul stage and prepared to sneak into the spirit realm. Realizing he couldn't be safe alone, he asked Bingfeng to accompany him. At this point, mutual distrust remained. Before the escape, they each placed a restriction on the other, to be lifted only upon safe arrival in the spirit realm. It could be said they were willing to die together, a commitment Han Li hadn't even made with Nangong Wan, yet he and Bingfeng were prepared to die together, not seeking to live together. As for Bingfeng's changing feelings for Han Li, that would happen upon reaching the spirit realm. When Han Li and Bingfeng were smuggling themselves through a spatial node, a spatial storm forced them apart, and the restrictions on their bodies activated. Han Li was able to disperse the essence of his second nascent soul into his physical body, preserving his physical form from dissipation. But he lost all his magical power. If Han Li suffered such a fate, Bingfeng naturally fared no better. Although his beastly physique prevented him from being torn apart by the spatial storm, Bingfeng was directly reduced to his original form. Having finally regained his strength, Bingfeng was captured by a nascent soul stage expert and taken to an auction house. Han Li rescued him only after arriving at the auction. This rescue likely caused a change in Bingfeng's feelings for Han Li. From then on, Bingfeng stayed by Han Li's side, even using his own yin essence to help Han Li break through to the late nascent soul stage. Clearly, he had fallen in love with Han Li. As for why the six-winged frost centipede fell for Bingfeng, firstly, it was because Bingfeng had once possessed the six-winged frost centipede in the human realm. Secondly, both Bingfeng and the six-winged frost centipede possessed ice-cold attributes, and their dual cultivation would indeed be highly beneficial to both. When the six-winged frost centipede transformed, it still adopted Han Li's appearance. Therefore, although Bingfeng consistently rejected his advances, she only accompanied him on his travels through the spirit realm because of his resemblance to Han Li. This continued until Ma Liang descended to the mortal realm and encountered the two, wanting to tame the six-winged frost centipede as his spirit pet. This led to Bingfeng being hunted by Ma Liang. At the critical moment, Han Li arrived and saved Bingfeng again, taking her back to the human realm and keeping her at Qingyuan Palace. After Han Li dealt with Ma Liang, Bingfeng became one of the closest people to him for the next 8,000 years, witnessing Han Li's tribulation and ascension. However, the immortal realm arc doesn't mention Bingfeng, presumably still residing in Qingyuan Palace in the spirit realm.